Hello my fellow crafters and welcome back to Inspiration for Cards. My name is David and today I'm going to be making a card for you. And it's a special day because I'm filming for the first time ever from my new studio. Now it's not completely finished yet. As you can see behind me, it's still dark and messy, but yeah, that's gonna be for the next one but technically everything is replaced. New cameras, new front cam, new workstation cam, all technical bits that's there. So if I'm looking that way, that means that I'm checking whether everything is still working. Bear with me, I have to get used to all the different buttons and everything, but we'll get there. I'm pretty sure of that. So without any further ado, let's dive in and make a beautiful vintage grungy card because I feel like it. I've done a lot of cute lately and it's time to do some vintage. So let's switch to the workstation. So here we are. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be working with different sets. And I'm combining different sets, etc. I'm going to be using with this beautiful stamp set and die set from Elizabeth Craft Designs. It's the Mindfulness set from the beautiful Blooms collection, one of my favorite collections. I'm going to be using a sentiment strip from this set, the Happy Birthday. I'm going to be using that. This is from the latest floral release, beautiful set. This is also coming from that same floral release, but it has some very nice sentiment die strips in there. And that's the one I'm going to be using. And it combines perfectly with the Happy Birthday that I just showed you. Look, perfect match. So that's what I'm going to be using for that. And what I'm also going to be using, let me show you, is this piece of paper. Now I've already I've got my card base in a vanilla color. I've got a card panel, another card panel cut out of craft paper, because I think that's a pretty match. I've used a decal edge trimmer from Holtz, so that's going to be on there. And then I've got this piece of paper. This is paper from an old book. It's a book about gardening, so there's no weird texts in there, etc. So you can just safely use it for a card. If it's on the mantle and someone reads it and there's no inappropriate text, always check that. Good. I'm going to take my this one, the vintage photo, my vintage photo brush. I know that's on there, and I'm using vintage photo in the normal formula, so not the distress, because the difference is the distress is full coverage and the normal inks are transparent. So that's why I'm using that. I'm just going to color randomly over that paper. I want this paper to have an old, grungy look to it, so we're going to create that. I'm just going to go over that. Some spots a bit heavier, some spots a bit less. And I'm going to trim it to size, so I'm not going to be bothered too much about the edges, etc. But I just want to be able to pick the bits that I like best. So that's why I'm using a bigger page. Okay, so that's that done now. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to grunge this up a bit. So I'm going to make wrinkles in it. I'm going to straighten it out a bit. Then I'm going to come back with my, wrong brush. I'm going to come back with my brush and just go over it. And what you will see is that the wrinkles that I made by crunching the paper will pick up a bit more of the color, giving it a bit more of a used, old and grungy look. But we're not done yet. No. What I'm going to do next is something a bit more drastic, because I'm going to grunge it up again. But even more. Crunch it up, take it apart, and grunge it up again. There we go. Now I'm not flattening it out completely, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ground espresso, the darkest color in the distress line, and I'm just very lightly going to take my ink pad and swipe it over the higher bits of the paper. And that's going to give it even more grungy dimension than it already had. So don't press too hard, because then you will completely cover the page in the darker ink. That's not what we want, but I just wanted to touch the higher ridges that I created by squashing the paper like that. Love how that looks. Okay, so I can put the ink to the side. What I will do next, because I really don't want these wrinkles, I really don't want these wrinkles in there. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a piece of paper and put it through my die cutting machine, and that will flatten it out again. And here we have it. Nice and flat, but we still have the illusion of all these wrinkles in there. I really, really love that. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my walnut stain, and I'm lightly going to ink up my brush with that. I'm just lightly going to go over some of the areas just to darken it up ever so slightly. I'm going to keep this here because I'm going to need that later on. So next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my deckled edge trimmer and I'm going to measure my front panel. Now I know this is going to be 13.5, say 14 centimeters. So I'm going to trim this down to 14 centimeters. That's going to mean it's going to hang off a bit. We're going to cover that. But this panel on the side, it needs to be, I want it to be like 8.5 centimeters, or maybe even 8 centimeters. Yeah, 8 centimeters, because that will give me a nice border all around. So let's start with that. So I'm going to put my paper in, and I'm going to start on this side making a trim. And I like how this is looking, so there we go. So I'm going to turn the paper around, and then I'm going to trim it to size. So I'm going to look 8 centimeters, that's right here. Just a little below 3¼ inches. My American friend, there we go. Now I'm just going to double check whether I did not mess that up. No, look, perfect. That's a perfect match. I like that little border coming out. So I'm going to trim one side. Like so. And then I'm going to combine the two together. Making sure. And now we have a perfect match on the top and the bottom. That's what we want. Put these to the side. I'm not going to throw that away because I can use that in my art journal or anything. So the trimmer can go away. I'm going to let this panel dry for a second. So let's move on to our bird. I'm going to stamp out my bird and the sentiment. So I'm going to take my MISTI. Got my MISTI here with my sticky grid in it. I'm going to put this in the corner here. Make sure it's there. And then put down the little bird. And I might as well put down the sentiment in the same go. Because I'm going to stamp that out in the same color, so I might as well do that. Then I'm going to put my magnet smack in the middle there. And I'm going to stamp that using my VersaFine Clair in the color Fallen Leaves. I don't want to use black. I don't want that harsh black on there. I want this all to be looking old, vintage, brownish. So that's why I'm using this color. So I'm going to pick these up. And I love the Elizabeth Craft Design stamps. They're of great quality. And when you get them, they don't have this goo on them. So I hardly ever stamp them off in the beginning. Sometimes I think about it, but mainly I forget because it's not necessary. Right, I've inked this up quite well. And I'm going to stamp it down now. And I'm going to take my Easy to Glide to apply some even pressure all over. And give that ink some time to absorb into the paper, right? Because sometimes I think we want to go too quick. Just give it a second to sink into the paper. And very often, once is enough when I use these stamps. But if it's not, I'm happy I've used my stamp positioner. Look, perfectly stamped. Love it. I'm going to peel this off. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to let this dry a bit. I'm going to cut out my sentiment first. So I'm going to put this on there. And again, this is also easy to line up. I just put the sticky tape a bit on my fingers or on my hand to get rid of the most of the stickiness. And I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. Okay, let's see. That has die cut beautiful. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful. Now what I'm going to do with whatever's left on my vintage photo brush, I'm going to crunch that up a bit to make it all matchy-matchy. And what I've also done off camera is I've cut out a banner, the same banner, out of craft paper, because that brings in the craft paper that I use as a back layer. There we go. Look. Gives it that vintage feel instantly. Here's a little craft piece that I made. What I'm going to do, I'll show you, I'll put this together now so it has some time to dry. I'm going to put some glue behind this. And I'm just going to offset that a bit. Like so. To create a fun little banner. And I like that offset like this. Just gives it a bit of a festive feel, wavy flags, whatever. I just like it. So that's that. I'm going to put that to the side to dry. So this now should be dry. No smudging. Nope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink up my brush just ever so slightly. And I'm going to use that to color in the bird. I'm not going to use different colors. You can color them in beautifully, but I just want to give this a hint of color, a bit darker on the belly, and then going out. I'm just going outside of the lines because this is going to be cut out anyway. So I'm just going to do it like this. You see, the belly is slightly darker. Making it lighter towards the wings, the beak, and the tail. That's all the coloring I'm going to do today. Simple, right? Sometimes simple is the most effective. So I'm going to take this die again, line it up. These are very easy to line up. Okay, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. Okay, there we have it. And now let's see how did this go. Look at that, perfectly cut. I love this vintage look. It all pulls it together. I love it. Right, put that away before I throw it in a bin. Done that before, but I'm sure you're with me on it. Because it's time to assemble this beautiful card. So I've got my card base. First, I'm gonna attach the layers. So I've got my first layer. I'm gonna use my ATG gun for that. I'm going to put some strips of this adhesive on. And I'm going to line it up. It has a nice craft border around it. There we go. Then I'm going to put some adhesive behind here as well. Carefully though, not to rip the paper, because that would be, well, I wouldn't call it a disaster, but yeah, a disaster. After all this work, ready to assemble. Now, I have to do this the right way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hover around it, going to pull it towards me ever so slightly, and line this up at the top, making sure I have an even border around it, around the sides. Press this down. There we go. Good enough. Better than horrible. It's not completely straight, but then again, with all the deckled edge, you hardly see it. And it's on there now. Can't take it off. Have to do it with it. This is going to be there, but I'm going to pop this up using some foam tape. So I'm just going to take a strip, cut that in half, and put that on there. Like so. And then I'm going to put some strips behind the bird as well, because I want to pop that up as well. Just like that. Right, so I'm going to start by I'm going to start by peeling off the backings and then putting the bird on there. I love how this turned out. It's really looking vintage and old, like me. Turning 50 this year. Not that I mind though. I really don't care. There we go. So, I will put this like this. I like this to come off here a bit. There we go. And then it's time for the sentiment to go on there. So I'm peeling off that backing. And I'm just going to hover over it so I make sure that it's in the right position. Like so. And press it down. So our front panel is ready. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some glue because I definitely don't want to ruin it now. And this will give me some wiggle time to put it on the card base. Go. Make sure it opens on the correct side. That happened before as well. And put it on there. Now this is the benefit of using glue because I can really see it come down just a bit, like so. And here is the finished card. Already done. A quick and easy project, but I really love how this came out. It's a beautiful, beautiful die set, and I've used it in a different way now because normally you color these birds in. It's very monochromatic now. It's old, it's grungy, it's vintage. I love how it turned out. If you like it as well, please consider to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to do a giveaway when I reach 1,500 subscribers, but you got to be in it to win it. And it's going to be a huge giveaway. Nice die set from Elizabeth Craft Designs, and I might throw in some other bits by that time. 200 to go, slightly over 200 to go. So yeah, be in it to win it. That's the motto. So with that being said, thank you for watching this one, and I would love to see you for the next one. Thank you very much. Bye.